Hello and welcome to the Rose Rehash. Every Monday night after The Bachelor, we recap the show and then I give out awards. That's right. Today I come to you from Aruba. I got a fun Aruba beer in my hand, and it was a great episode. I actually liked tonight's episode a lot because we finally got to know Matt James. If this was an episode in a Marvel, show. Like if it was WandaVision, this would be the Matt James backstory episode. This is where we get the origin story, so to speak. And so I liked it because that's kind of what's been missing from this season. This season has had a lot of drama without getting to know the people. You have to know the people to love the drama. And I think that's what this season has missed. And so before we get to today's recap, let me first say, go check out my new stand-up special. It is called Socially Distanced, of course. It is on YouTube. So if you're watching it right here, it's one click away. So get the link, click on it, put it away for another night. Watch it with your friends, share it, go like it, comment on it, go right now. Get that link, Socially Distanced, of course. It's out there. It's all about the social anxiety of 2020. So go check it out. So let's get to the recap. We start the show by talking to the three women. And it's, again, I'm going to come back to the same theme. We don't know these people. They're as much strangers to us as they were kind of on episode 3. So they kind of go through all three of the women, Michelle, Bree, Rachel, and they still have lower thirds. Like they still have like Rachel, Bree, Michelle, age 25. Like they still have that stuff. We should be beyond that. So we meet the women again, and we kind of go through like, hey, this is a big week. We come back to Matt James, and he's like, let's do this. Let's go. All of a sudden, doorbell rings. There's Matt's dad. And we have heard about his dad a little bit. We just know that he grew up with a single mother. That's really all we know, that his dad was in and out of his life. That's and we know that, like we know, but we don't know that. Like we just kind of have heard that along the way. We saw his mom in the beginning of the season. He talks about how he grew up in a home where it was just him and his mom. So the dad shows up, and I don't think the dad had any idea what was coming. I think he just was like, yeah, I'm on a show. Come on over. And he was like, TV, great, good for you. I'm there to support you if that's what you need. And Matt gets into it with him. Like this was maybe in a season where we haven't gotten to know people, this was maybe the most serious conversation we've ever seen on The Bachelor. He's talking to his dad, and he's having a conversation that I would be too afraid to have on national television. Like I wouldn't be ready to be like, Dad, so because the dad was surprised. The dad was like, look at, first of all, he walks into a house that is rented by ABC. And he's like, whoa, doing pretty well. And it's like, yeah, ABC's doing pretty well. Like they rented this house for me. I'm on a TV show. Don't you see that? There's cameras here. Like the dad was he just didn't seem to get the gravity of the whole situation, like the idea that this house was not his son's, the idea that he was walking into something that was going to be watched by millions of people. And Matt says to him, hey man, I'm having a lot of trouble like getting to know these women, and it has a lot to do with like kind of my upbringing and you not being around, and when you came, you would drop off shoes and pizza, but I needed a dad. And he's like, and the dad, it's amazing because it's amazing the difference between social media generation and non-social media generation. Like he doesn't get that he's been backed into a corner. He's still in, I'm going to talk my way out of this mode. He's like, a lot of people make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And it's like, yeah, you're kind of diverting from the real conversation I want to have. Like, I want to talk to you about us and my relationship with you. And I want you to know that I need more of you in my life. And he's like, nobody's perfect, man. Come on. You don't understand. Like, my dad died. Like, when you go, like, and I'm not saying that that's not a horrible thing, but when you go, my dad was killed at 5 years old, you go, well, again, like I'm not looking to give you therapy. I'm looking for therapy from you. It just didn't seem like he got it. And they get to the end of this, and it does feel like a breakthrough for Matt and his dad, which is very nice. But to watch it, you know, you're sitting at home being like, oh my God, we're watching two people like have this conversation for the first time. Like usually when there's a conversation with the parents, it's like, I love you, and I know you love me, and I know it's hard for us to say each other. And they've had that conversation before. This did feel like it was a conversation they had never had before. And, you know, good for them. But it comes up later in the episode. So now we go to the first date is with Michelle. Michelle and him are going to do a spa. They go to a spa where they're doing like Pennsylvania spa. I've never heard of a Pennsylvania spa. I thought a Pennsylvania spa was going to be them like with cheese whiz all over them while eating steak sandwiches. Like I didn't think like they're doing oatmeal baths that look like they were putting their feet in diarrhea. They put butter on one another. Like it was like they were basting each other. Like the butter thing. You kind of forget how delicious butter looks. I'm not going to lie. I was looking at the butter. I was like, man, I wish I had some hot bread and I could take a knife and just like slather it on. It looked good. When you see that much butter out, for some reason, it's not disgusting. It actually looks good. So they do the butter, they do the bread. Michelle and him have this connection that is very comfortable. It's comfortable to watch, as uncomfortable as Matt and his dad's conversation was, is as comfortable as Michelle and Matt felt. And they kind of go back and they have this conversation. And if you remember in the beginning of the season, Matt said, he was like, I feel really good being around families. I like to like enter into someone's family. I was always hanging out with my friend who had a big family. Michelle is that big family. Michelle's saying like, she kind of like empathized with him, but she also says like, I have this family that like everyone had a great time with you. It feels exactly what Matt explained in the beginning. So that's why like the Michelle thing feels right. They go back and so they get done and they go back to the fantasy suite. They have their night. The fantasy suites episodes are hilarious to me. Like there's nothing funnier than The Bachelor, a show that is on a Disney-owned network, just doing this like innuendo to sex. Like they always do that. They can't say, yeah, they're in there fucking. Like they can never say that. So they always have to like fireworks and door closing and put a little sock on the door and like, you know, it's never just like, yeah, those two are having sex. It's always childish. And they do that with Michelle and Matt. So then we go to Bree's date. Oh, Michelle comes back to the house and you can tell, like, this is the awkward part about the fantasy suite. When you deal in innuendos, it's just uncomfortable. No one's just being open about it. So Michelle comes back, Bree and Rachel are sitting there and they're like, how was your night? And she's like, we went to a spa. And the two women are just sitting there like, yeah, a spa, huh? Like you can tell, like, it's not comfortable. And if I'm going to be a woman or a man, if I'm a person in the fantasy episode, I want to go first. I want to go first. I don't want to go last. I don't want to be the last one. I don't want to be the second one. I don't want to be the in-between one. I want to be first. I want to be that first memory. I want to be that first. I don't want to like, you know, see them, you know, after a night out with another woman like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm so hungry. I'm ravenous. It's just a late night last night, if you know what I mean. And it's like, I don't want to be that. I want to be first. Michelle got the good spot. So then Bree goes on her date. They go out to the woods and they pitch a tent, which to me, like, I want to, if I'm on fantasy week, I want to be beyond having to do the tent pitching. Like, if I saw a tent, like, needed to be made, I'd be like, what kind of fantasy is this? Whose fantasy is this? This is my nightmare. So they pitch the tent. They have to sleep in the tent. Like, to me, if I'm Bree, I'm like, hey, I have to compete with these women. Like, I need to be rested. I need to be ready for a night. Like, Michelle just went to a spa and like got relaxed before she went out and, you know, had her sex. Like I now I got to sleep on the ground before I'm gonna like be ready to like go to this fantasy suite. It's horrible. They go out for dinner and Bree asks a very Bree and Matt kind of connect on the single mother thing, which is great. It does feel like a connection. But then Bree stops the date to go, are you ready to get engaged? And Bree kind of questions Matt in the way her mom questioned Matt, which was interesting. We'll get back to that. So now she says, I love you, which Michelle also said, I love you. We get done with that date. They go back to the fantasy suite. Again, innuendo. Shut the door, rockets going off, trains going through tunnels. Yeah, all the childish things. And that's the end of the date. She comes back, and it's funny. When these women come, I think Matt has to be good at sex. Like, there's no question. Because both of these women came back, and they were like, they look like they came back from the Breakers Hotel in West Palm. Like, they look like they just came from a spa weekend, not a spa day. When they come back from fucking Matt, they look like they come back from like Western Massachusetts, just like, yeah, it was just a great time. Like, I don't even know. And then because the difference between them and Rachel, like Rachel's sitting there like, so you guys both had fun. Like, she's tense. And the both of them are like, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. What did you say? Yeah, no. We totally connected. Lots of conversations. Like, it didn't feel like Matt really was their dream scenario from a fantasy suite scenario. So Rachel goes on the date with Matt. She's very uncomfortable, and they go to do ceramics, and they're going to do, the ceramics, and they're putting, their hand on the thing like it's Ghost. And what should be a sexy date is not, because Rachel's so uncomfortable, and she looks at Matt. She goes, we got to stop this. I need to know where you stand. I need to know where you are, which isn't fair, because Rachel basically says to him, she's like, do you take me seriously? And it's like, you're in the final 3. Like, this isn't the final 20. Like, what more of a promise could Matt make to you at this point in this show? Yeah, you're here. I'm taking you seriously as someone I could get engaged to. And Matt then goes into this speech about his dad and it's the 3rd time he's given the same speech. And you're like, Matt, are you just repeating the same thing to all these women? You're just saying, like, I've had a lot of problems growing up. And see, it felt like Matt had worked out a story that he could tell these people to not disappoint them. And Rachel looks at him and is like, great, good to know. Okay, so you're ready to get engaged. Okay, that's all I needed to hear. I didn't know you'd hear. And she's like, heard about the dad. Good, let's go. Let's start fucking. And they go back to the room, and they go back, and they have, the same night. That's it. We come back to the rose ceremony. The rose ceremony is Michelle, Bree, Rachel, and Matt gives Michelle and Rachel the roses, and Bree is gone. Bree handles it amazingly. I have to say, Bree handled it. It made me think of her mom and kind of the speech the mom gave to her, where the mom was like, listen, we're going to be, if your feelings are hurt, we're going to be hurting together. And it's like, wow, like, she had such strength. Like, usually there's this like song and dance routine of like, I don't know if I'll ever find someone, but maybe one day. Bree didn't do that. It makes me like her so much more. And now we're down to 2. We're down to Michelle and Rachel. A weird ending to a weird season. Let's give out some awards. The Batches is where I give out roses to my favorite characters from the episode and divorce papers to my least favorite characters. My first rose is going to go to Matt James. Yeah, Matt James, great job with your dad. I thought that conversation with his dad was so difficult, but he never let him off the hook. And that's hard to do with a dad. When a dad looks at you and goes, not everyone's perfect, and kind of diverts and jukes all of your questions. Not everyone's perfect. My dad got killed. And he's like, no, I need you to know that I need a dad. I loved it. I thought it was probably one of the most serious conversations I've ever seen on this show. My next rose is going to go to Michelle. Michelle just is so at ease, so comfortable. It feels like the perfect fit to me. The way she said, like, hey, like, you know, when Matt explained his whole story with his dad and his family and how he has apprehension about getting serious because of what he's seen in his life, she's like, that doesn't mean I don't think you're worthy of being with someone. And it's like, wow, what a great answer to that. The last rose is going to go to Bree. Bree handled asking him about the engagement so well. She's like, I need to know, are you here for an engagement? Because Bree's a serious person. She works, I think, at Facebook. She left her job. This is business to her. And I think she has a right to make it business. I don't think that every relationship and every pursuit of a relationship should be business, but she has made a very serious decision with her life to go find love, and she wants someone to give it as seriously as her. And I thought that was great. And the way she left the show, poised, collected. She goes, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, I'm just sad. What an amazingly put together, rational way to come at it that is just appreciated from this recap. Let's go to the divorce papers. The first divorce paper is going to go to the ceramics teacher. The ceramics teacher, I don't know if you noticed this, but at the beginning of the ceramics date, she tries to compare ceramics to relationships. Hey, ceramics teacher, why don't you just teach us how to spin the bowl that we're making here and, you know, tell us when to add water. Tell us how to put stuff in the kiln. We don't need you taking this moment on The Bachelor to be like, you know, ceramics are much like a love. You must form them. You must fashion them. You must put them in the kiln and have them resist the fire of temptation. It's like, ceramics teacher, don't bring your philosophy major here to our fucking show. The next divorce paper is going to go to Matt James. Matt James told the same story to all three women. Each woman he looked at and he goes, you know, my dad, it was like he was a cover band. Like there's a cover band that I used to see like at the Jersey Shore, and they would do the same set every time. They'd be like, you know, I used to know a girl. She was a brown-eyed girl. And then they start playing Brown-Eyed Girl. Matt James did that same exact thing. He was like, you know, I had a dad, and he was a tough dad, but that's why I can't become serious with women. And it's like, dude, are you just trying to get through these three relationships, or do you have any connection with them specifically? It didn't feel like it. The last divorce paper is going to go to Matt James's dad. Matt James's dad didn't know what he was walking into. He thought this was going to be a fun conversation with his son. He thought that this was going to be a big moment. He's going to come on TV. He's going to give him a hug, and he's going to say, have fun, buddy. Good luck. Fuck three women. No. Matt James is like, no, we're going to talk about this. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Nobody's perfect. When you say nobody's perfect, you're just basically looking for a side door out of a conversation. It was a bad look for his dad. I like that he got redeemed at the end, but that was a tough, tough moment. That was our episode. That's the Rose Rehash. We'll be back for the finale next week. Boom.